introduce Kylie Rouge, who's going to deliver for us an employee safety story. Kylie has 10 years of experience in mental health with some of the most amazing and complicated human beings, teenagers. We've told a lot of powerful patient safety stories at SPS learning sessions, and I'm always left with complicated feelings of, on the one hand, disappointment that we cannot more quickly create an environment to keep patients safe, but also hope, because I always hear it in the context of this room, that somehow we can change the world. And I think the same thing is true when I hear stories about people who have committed their professional lives to taking care of children. I think this story is no exception, and I very much appreciate Kylie's courage and her willingness to share with us a very personal story of her experience. So please join me in welcoming Kylie to the stage.
Good morning.
Good morning.
There's a lot of people. So I'm Kylie. I'm from Seattle Children's Hospital, and this is pretty much my injury story. I want to start off by saying, who's ever been passionate about something? Yay! I think we're all passionate about safety, right? So everyone put your hands up. I was passionate about my entire life when I moved to Seattle in 2014. I grew up in a small town called Ipswich, Massachusetts. I grew up with my parents and two younger sisters. Pretty typical childhood. Teenage years were a little harder. I was diagnosed with depression. I attended college just outside of Philadelphia and got my BA in psychology. Throughout high school and college, I made yearly trips to see my cousin in the Pacific Northwest. And every time I was there, I was like, I love it here, I'm gonna move here. But circumstances never felt right, so I never did. So in 2009, when I graduated from college, I moved back to Massachusetts. I got a job as a counselor at a residential program for teens, and I loved that we could provide teenagers with a safe, stable, and supportive environment. I worked there for 5 years, loved every second of it. But in 2014, life began to feel mundane. Initially, I thought it was my depression making a comeback. So I tried my usual coping skills of writing, art, exercise, bringing friends. Nothing made it better. So I sat down and I said, "Self, what are you passionate about?" And the only thing I came up with was Seattle. So I sat down, looked at my finances, and called my cousin, and literally said, "Hey, it's me. I really hope you still have that spare room available in your house because I'm moving there at the end of the month." She thought I was joking until I literally showed her my receipt for my one-way plane ticket. So I spent the next 3 weeks, it was a really quick decision for me, 3 weeks packing my entire life into 4 suitcases. I got on a plane with the support of my friends and family and moved across the country. When I got to Seattle, I knew I wanted to make the most of my new life. There was a reason why I wasn't happy in Massachusetts. So I did everything I could possibly think of. I volunteered at the Human Rights Campaign. I did a lot of hiking and saw my first glacier. I did camping, river floats. I learned that in Seattle there's way more ways to make coffee than really necessary. I fell back in love with old school roller skating. I was running 5 miles a day, bought a brand new car, met a whole bunch of people. My job search took a little bit longer. I didn't want to settle in a job. I wanted something I was going to be excited about showing up to every day. So when there was an opening at Seattle Children's Hospital on their psychiatry, behavioral medicine unit, I lunged. I couldn't wait. Not only did they also provide children and teens with a safe, stable, and supportive environment, but they extended that to the families as well. They were seclusion-free and restraint-free, unless ultimately necessary for safety. And everyone there worked as a team. Life was amazing in Seattle. Did I mention I also fell in love? I mean, talk about just everything falling together. I didn't think anything was going to bring me down. But then in February of 2016, something happened that changed my entire life. I was finishing up a night shift on the PBMU. My coworkers and I were waking up patients and setting them up for a successful day. There was one patient who was having a rough time, and he was utilizing what we had taught him. He was asking for space. But there was another patient who was also having a rough time, and she began bullying him. Those of us on the unit were coaching to this situation and trying to remind them to be respectful, but the bully didn't want to do that. She kept bullying. And the patient I was working with escalated. He turned on his heels, charged at her, and started punching her over and over again. Everyone who works on the PBMU is trained extensively on what to do in aggressive situations because unfortunately we see it more often than not. So my coworkers and I decided in the moment that for safety reasons we needed to go hands-on. And so we went hands-on and we were able to get the aggressor into a standing hold. But then he decided to use us as leverage and started kicking the other patient. We had to reposition ourselves. I sort of ended up in the middle, but we were able to successfully get him into another standing hold and separate them. And they were able to move on with their days. According to our policy, we as staff, after any event that requires us to go hands-on, we debrief. And so when we debrief, one of the things we discuss is if there were any staff injuries to report. And in the moment, there were none. We had a ton of adrenaline in our system, but we were all fine, so we went on with our day. I finished my shift, I went home, did my normal self-care routine, and very much looked forward to sleep, so I slept. When I woke up the next morning, I could not feel my legs. I rolled over and I looked at my girlfriend, Emily, and I said, something isn't right. Every time I tried to move my legs, there was a shooting pain down the backside of both of them that was so severe, I couldn't catch my breath. So I called my manager and he told me to fill out an on-the-job injury report and see my doctor. So I did that. And my doctor referred me to a chiropractor, so I found a chiropractor and saw them and they took x-rays and said, come back tomorrow. So I went back the next day and he showed me into a room and said, please sit down. We are all in healthcare. We know that when a provider looks at you somberly and says, please sit down, it's not because they have really good news to tell you. So I sat down and he said, it looks like you've been T-boned in a car accident. And I said, okay, because I have no idea what he meant by that. Till he pulled up my x-rays and I saw this. The green line is where your spine should be and the red line is where my spine was. My spine in the event the day before had shifted itself to the left by an entire inch and backwards by an entire inch. So initially, I had a million questions racing through my mind, but the only thing that I could come up with saying was, what now? And he looked at me and he said, I don't know, only time will tell, but we've got this. All I heard was, I don't know. So I went home, and it took my depression maybe 2 hours to start playing mind games with me. It told me my life was over. I was gonna have to quit my job, leave Seattle, move back to Massachusetts and live with my parents because I was gonna be disabled. My friends weren't gonna wanna be my friends. I was no longer a positive, bubbly, adventurous person. And I actually came up with ways to break up with my girlfriend Emily because it wasn't fair to her to be in a relationship for a year and go from being in a healthy relationship to my primary caregiver. So overnight, I went from being able to do all of these things and more to this. I wish I was exaggerating. I wish I could tell you that I could do more than breathe, but I want you to think for a moment about using the bathroom. Weird, I know, but just humor me and think about using the bathroom. Think about all of the movements and actions that go into that. You have to stop what you're doing, make your way to the bathroom, fidget with some clothing, then you have to like sit, squat sort of, you know, and then you gotta do it all again and move on with your day. I couldn't do any of that. The second I did any bending motion or squatting position was when my nerves stretched the most, and my legs literally gave out beneath me. So I would try and wait till Emily got home from work. She works a full-time job. I'm not going to wait 9 hours to use the bathroom. That's not going to work. So it used to take 10 to 15 minutes for me to use the bathroom on my own, and it was exhausting and included a lot of pain and discomfort. People hear my story and they go, this is horrible. How did you make it through? And the only thing that I can say is my support system. My friends and family were incredible. I had a great team of providers working with me. Emily never left my side and never complained. But the biggest support actually came from my managers and colleagues on the PDMU. My manager reached out to me often, and he said, don't worry, you have a job to come back to when you're better. And not just because legally he had to. He actually said it and meant it. He followed that statement with, we notice your absence. This is a horrible situation, but you are a valuable part of this team, and we want you to come back. Those words were so powerful because I was so lost. Everything felt so dark, and it was finally that light of hope that I needed. Of course, through the whole situation, there were many things that could be improved upon. But to be honest, a lot of it is government-based when it comes to workers' compensation, and we can't necessarily fix all of those things. So what can we as hospitals improve on? I have 3 ideas. The first thing is, if there is a severe injury, revisit your policies and procedures. Not only did my unit reach out to me and remind me that I was included in my job and they missed me, but they said, how can we try and prevent this from ever happening again? So we sat down and we had a discussion on the phone because I was at home and talked about how we could change things to make sure no one else hopefully would go through this same situation. And we made some changes both unit-wide and hospital-wide about how we attend, assess, and respond to situations including 2 or more people in an aggressive situation. So revisit those policies and procedures and make changes if you can. Doesn't mean there's always changes that can be made, but if there are, then do it. The second thing is let them know the fine print. When someone is injured, they're feeling pretty lost and alone. Like I said, I was in a really dark place. So I filled out an on-the-job injury report, and the HR department at Seattle Children's sent me an awesome packet of information about how to fill out all of the paperwork that came after that. But I was more concerned with my paycheck. I had bills to pay, and I wasn't working. So I was really excited when I read on a piece of paper that I would receive a paycheck 2 weeks after my claim had been filed. I was used to getting paid on a bi-weekly schedule. This was nothing new for me. But what they didn't explain to me was what they meant when they said, once your claim has been filed. To break it down, you fill out an on-the-job injury report, HR sends you a packet in the mail, which takes a couple days, and then I'm not gonna lie, that packet sat on my dining room table for a couple days because I was so emotionally overwhelmed already that all of this paperwork didn't make that any better, and I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing when I filled it out. I also had to gather information from my providers. And then I had to put it all back in the mail and send it off. It's a few days. And I don't know what the filing process looks like. I'm gonna assume that my HR department is pretty busy and I'm not the only one that they're worried about, so it probably took a couple more days. So I was expecting a paycheck 2, maybe 3 weeks after my injury. I didn't receive a paycheck for a month and a half. And just because I was injured, my bills didn't stop. And it added a lot more stress to my situation. The third thing is let them know expectations and options. And this one's a little harder. It includes a little bit more of government stuff, but there's still things that we as hospitals can make sure our employees know. I did not know that after 120 days of a claim being open in workers' compensation that you are expected to go to a reevaluation with a brand new provider you've never met before to see if your claim can stay open. They make this appointment for you on a day you're just expected to be available and show up. So I showed up and I met with this provider who was not personable at all. And he asked me to bend forward, backwards, to the left and to the right, and he measured my movements. And then he poked and prodded at my spine. And he said, where's your pain level? And I was honest because there was a great deal of pain. And then he sent me on my way. Pretty sure I spent more time in that waiting room than I did with this provider who was going to make a decision on whether or not I could continue to receive care. I don't know what he wrote down. I never saw notes from that appointment, but what I do know is I received a phone call a couple days later that said, "We believe you are stable enough to return to work. We're going to close your claim." And that was it. I had finally gotten used to the care that I was receiving, which was 3 chiropractic appointments a week, 2 physical therapy appointments a week, 1 primary care appointment, a whole bunch of medications for pain management, which ultimately completely disrupted my digestive system, so that was a whole other thing that I was dealing with. And all of a sudden, that care just stopped. So, what do? I didn't know who to go to with my questions and concerns because I felt like I had just been left to deal with the rest of it alone. So I was paying out of pocket for the rest of my care because I wasn't better. And to be honest, even if I had known that I could have fought this decision, or I knew who to go to with questions, I don't know what I would have said because I was so over it. I wanted to be better. I wasn't anywhere close to being better. So make sure they know the options and who to go to when they have questions. Now, of course, these 3 things are very important, and they're all things, again, that we as hospitals can think about and hopefully improve on. But I'm going to bring it back to that support piece from my unit, because without their support, I wouldn't be where I am right now. My manager also told me that he did not expect me to come back to work on day 1 and be able to work a 12-hour shift. He said, do what you can and keep me posted. There were a couple days I worked 2 hours, and I felt horrible about it because who only works 2 hours of a 12-hour shift? No one. That's not really something you can do at a hospital. So I felt completely defeated. But my manager looked at me and he said, "Kylie, this is progress. 2 hours at work is better than no hours at work. You'll get there." And it was a motivational piece that I needed to then aim for 3 hours and 4 hours till I did get back to my 12 hours. It was the support I needed, again. So where am I now? Well, I'm standing in front of you and I'm walking around, and you will all be happy to know I can use the bathroom on my own again. Hooray. But I'm not completely better. I re-injured myself this past January. I went through the whole process again because my spine will never be what it was. I will probably never run 5 miles a day again. I'm at the point now where my friends and family have conversations with me and they go, "Kylie, hi, reality check. You are 32 years old. You have had 2 very serious back injuries. You need to quit your job. You can't work on the PVMU, it's not safe." And while I hear them and I understand completely where they're coming from, because I would probably say the same thing to someone, my response to them is, "I'm sorry, you guys don't understand. I love my job. Every day I get to show up and work with these patients and their families who are in crisis, and I get to remind them that today is just another day. Tomorrow is another day where they get to continue and try to improve themselves and improve the situation with the tools that we are giving them on the PVMU." And I'm able to say these things with a fight behind my words because I've been there and I get it, and I've overcome these obstacles. Emily, that relationship I thought for sure I was going to have to end, well, she surprised me and proposed 2 months after my injury. We got married last June, we have a house, and now we're talking about starting a family. And while this is usually exciting, for us it's very anxiety-provoking because I don't know if my body can physically handle carrying and having a child. And that's heartbreaking because that was always my goal in life. But I'm not going to give up. This is just temporary. I can overcome this. I still live in Seattle, and I am still part of the PVMU team, and I still have their support every day. So we're all in healthcare, and I would like to think it's because we are passionate about providing care and support to patients and families. And while that's amazing and obviously very important, I challenge you to extend that care and support to employees and colleagues all the time, but especially when they've been injured. Don't let them feel alone. Don't let them feel like a burden for being injured. Include them and remind them that they too are a valuable part of the team. And just like my unit had mine, both figuratively and literally, make sure you always have their back. Thank you guys.
I have nothing to add to that. Let that be in the back of your mind today as you attend the rest of the session. And so we'll break now and off to the first set of breakout sessions. Thanks.
So that was awesome. So good. I completely share your Seattle obsession. I had a lifelong obsession, so it was only